The president's made it clear and the Pentagon's made it clear we've decimated their Navy. We continue to take out their ballistic missile sites. There was a launch last night. You know, the Iranians said back in February that their missile capability was only like 1,200 kilometers, and they launched a intermediate ballistic missile 4,000 kilometers to try to hit one of our UK-US bases. So obviously their capabilities they said they were having and what we thought they have much more than that. So at this point, obviously the president and the administration want to secure the Strait of Hormuz as much as possible to be able to get back to normal shipping. He's sent A-10 Warthogs. He's sent Apaches. I think those ground troops that they're moving to the region, although not on the ground there, are there to secure the strait. That obviously is a focus now because you're seeing oil prices and energy prices increase because the tankers aren't able to get through that strait.
But the president has said the U.S. doesn't use the strait. We don't need it. So should the U.S. try to secure that strait?
Well, I think it's like a 20% of oil that goes through that comes to the United States. It's 80% of the world's oil that goes through there. So obviously, even though we can produce at home, that obviously impacts overall global oil rates and oil rates right here at home. We're seeing the price of the pump increase all across the country. So I think they want to get that back to normal. There's also a number of fertilizer that goes through there. Potash comes through that region, and there's a lot of fertilizer. So you're seeing impacts in the agricultural sector as well. So the president, and I think the administration wants, rightly so, to secure that as much as possible. I think the Japanese yesterday, when the prime minister was in town, agreed to help assist in securing that. I think once that happens, I think you'll see the economy kind of level back out once that there's able to move traffic through the strait.
You served in Iraq. You're an Army JAG. I'm curious what your experience in that conflict does to inform your sense of how this one is unfolding. Of course, there was a lot of complaint and concern about how that was lengthened and how there were so many different rationales delivered for it. How are you thinking about this conflict in the context of that one in which you served?
Well, I'm relieved in the fact that the administration and Hegseth and the president have been very clear that we're going in, accomplishing a mission, and we're getting out. We're going to take out their ballistic missile capability. We're going to take out their nuclear capability. And we had the intel hearing this week where I think they kind of got into some of that in the open hearing where the public was able to hear some of that. So I'm very positive about the fact that we're going to go in, accomplish the objective and the mission, and get out, and we're not going to be there for an extended period of time. We haven't put boots on the ground there like we did in Iraq in the early time in the surge. I served there from 06 to 07, which was one of the more violent times to be there. I don't want to see our troops on the ground in the country. I think having troops in the region to be able to secure the strait, I think, is very important. But we've already shown very quickly that we can go in with both air power and naval power and destroy the things that we need to destroy without putting boots on the ground.
I want to follow up on that because the president, there have been reporting the president is considering or has asked for plans to possibly take Karg Island. That may or may not require boots on the ground. If the president wanted to do that and it required a U.S. military presence on that island, would you support that?
Yeah, that island is pretty strategic because it's right there by the strait, and the Iranians have a number of different assets there that allows them to put mines and those boats they use. So I could see a limited deployment just to that island to ensure that the Iranians can't continue to use that to harbor and harm the shipping through the strait. I think that would be a smart move if that was something that we did in a limited capacity. I think, again, we have the ability through our air power and our naval power to be able to push back on a lot of the capabilities that the Iranians have. I think we've destroyed a number of their ballistic missile capabilities. They still have more, which is why you're still seeing strategic targets. But I think a small, limited incursion to that island to ensure that the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, I think is a good approach, a limited approach, where we're ensuring that the international traffic that's going through there is secure as it's traveling through.
But as David mentioned, limited actions in the Middle East, especially when it comes to the U.S. trying to do limited actions in the Middle East, often drag on for years and sometimes decades. Is that not a concern?
I mean, I don't have that concern. You saw what happened in Venezuela. We went in, we got Maduro, and we got out, and we don't have assets there. And you're seeing a very positive improvement there in the country of Venezuela and the relationships that we've had. We had the Interior Secretary not too long ago. The Venezuelans are openly now selling their oil to us. It's a much different political and economic environment there than it was when Maduro was there. And there was a large group of people from the media that were saying we would be there forever and we would have troops on the ground, and none of that has happened. So I trust the president. I trust what's happening at the Pentagon and Hegseth to make this a limited campaign to go in and strike the strategic things that we need to strike, and then pull out and allow whatever is going to happen with the people of Iran to happen, whether it's a democracy or a republic that comes there after the leadership is taken out and they have the opportunity to have democracy there.
In the time we have left, I'd love to ask you about those hearings that were on Capitol Hill over the course of last week with DNI Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratliff, and a kind of thread through both of them was this issue of how imminent was the threat from Iran. Curious for your thoughts on that, but more so, there were some testy exchanges surrounding what DNI Gabbard said about who gets to make the determination of what is an imminent threat, and she said that's the president's purview. That's something that he can do, and I think there were a lot of former intel folks who said, look, that's dismissing the work of a rather large intelligence community. How did you read what she had to say? Is that something that raised any concerns for you?
Well, it didn't, and she's right. I mean, at the end of the day, the president is the commander-in-chief of the military and has the ability to determine whether we need to be defended or need to go kinetic and be aggressive to protect the homeland and protect our bases in the region, and that's a decision that the president ultimately gets to make. I think there was a lot of discussion in the hearing about this immediacy and how we kind of define that. There were a lot more of that discussion in the closed-door hearing that was classified in nature, and you heard several of them say when that question came up that there's more information that can be provided in a classified setting. Obviously, I can't go into that here, but I think we're seeing the ramifications of that just last night. People were saying that the Iranians themselves in February were saying that they didn't have any missiles that went over 1,000 kilometers, and they launched one last night, 4,000 kilometers, and thankfully it didn't hit our base. So obviously they have a lot more capabilities that, one, they have said, and two, that a lot of people in the world thought that they had the capabilities to do. Obviously, the president has all of that intelligence in real time and is able to make a determination based off a threat that he sees to our bases in the region and to our allies in the region.
Congressman, quickly before we let you go, Congress is bracing for a Pentagon request that could be as much as $200 billion to help fund this war. Any concerns about spiraling costs? Do you think that's going to pass? And do you and your colleagues support that?
For me, it's going to need to be offset by cuts in other places. We're $39 trillion in debt. We can't continue to keep spending and not go after the debt and the deficit spending. So for me, it's going to have to be offset some way, somehow. I think that there's a lot of conservative members like myself that are in a similar circumstance. There are some members, and I've heard the reporting yesterday where there's a couple of members that said they're absolutely not going to support that. So you're going to have a challenge on the floor because we have a 2-vote majority right now. Thomas Massey's going to be a no. If one more Republican is a no, then it's not going to go. If they try to do a rule on it, which I assume they would, and those members vote against the rule, we're not even going to get to a vote. I don't think you have 2/3 majority to be able to pass it. I don't believe, and I don't know this, but I wouldn't assume that the Democrats are going to support $200 billion for the Iranian war. Maybe there's a handful of them that would, but even if there's a handful of them, that's not going to get you over that 2/3 threshold. So that is going to be a challenge, getting something like that through the House, just by virtue of the fact that if you have 2 members on the Republican side that are down on the rule, you're not passing a rule. And I don't believe, as we sit here today, that the Democrats would support a 2/3 suspension bill on something like that.